Welcome to another Numismatic Notes with Benjamin. I am Benjamin, and this is a Two Afghanis of Afghanistan. If you haven't already subscribed to my channel, please consider doing so now. The subscription button is in the bottom right-hand corner, and if you like my style, please click, please comment, and please share my channel and this video. I'm sharing tonight with you a Two Afghanis of Afghanistan. It is on a paper substrate, and it measures 143 by 70 millimeters. It is a predominantly brown with some undertones of blue and green. The Banknote book calls this a B301, while the Standard Catalog of World Paper Money calls this a PIC 21. In addition to those resources, I've used Wikipedia to find out more information on this note printed by Bradbury, Wilkinson and Company. Let's start with what's happening on the face of this note. To the left, we see the portrait of Muhammad Zahir Shah, and to the right, we see his watermark, only a side view. In the middle of the note, we see the national arms of Afghanistan as they were in SH 1318, which is actually 1939. The Shah ruled Afghanistan from 1933 to 1973, so after about his 40-year rule, he was overthrown by his brother-in-law, who ruled until his assassination in the 70s. He is remembered now because his time in charge of Afghanistan is remembered as a period of stability. He was only 19 when he ascended the throne, and after the overthrow of the Taliban government, he returned to Afghanistan in 2002 and was given the honorary title Father of the Nation. He never agitated to have a return to the throne, and I think that endeared himself to many different factions. The note is predominantly in Arabic, although you can see the denomination in the upper left and the lower right-hand corner is in English, and you can see the date right here in Arabic numerals, 1318, which translates to 1939. The actual signatures of the governors of the bank, even though it was a well-known note, nobody really knows exactly who those signatures are, or they haven't discovered who they are yet. So if you have access to this information, please put it in a comment so that we can update the authorities and get these men the honor they have for having their signature on a banknote. This is an intaglio printed note, which means if you run the note between your fingers, you should feel the raised lines of the ink. The galoshes and the ornamental borders complete the design on the face of this note. Now, if you haven't subscribed yet, please consider doing so. I'm getting ready to turn this note over, and it's a good time for you to consider subscribing to my video. There's a lot going on the back of this note, folks. We have the Bamyan Buddha and the Bamyan Valley and the city of Bamyan appearing on the back of this note. And if you're not really sure of what the Bamyan Buddhas were, they were the huge, many meters tall, like 10-story or more tall Buddhas that were constructed in these little niches way back hundreds of years ago, and are well known in print, not just from recent, writings, but from contemporary writings as well. In fact, early Chinese pilgrims frequently came to this part of Afghanistan to visit the Buddhas. And an early Chinese pilgrim mentioned a giant Buddha and the smaller Buddha, which everybody knows of. But tantalizingly, this tourist mentioned a third statue of a reclining Buddha. And that's interesting, and I'll see if I can't come back to that later. A third Buddha in the Bamyan Buddhas. I mean, there were hundreds of Buddhas, but there were just the main giant ones, the two. And then this tourist claims that there was a third one. So let's take a look at the text. And the text again is in Arabic, and it's beautiful and incomprehensible to me entirely. But here in the upper left-hand corner and the bottom right-hand corner, again, we have the denomination and the digits in Western indices and alphabet, and they say Two Afghanis. Bamyan province is one of the 34 provinces of Afghanistan, and the capital of Bamyan province is the town of Bamyan. It is also the cultural center of the Hazari people. So if you think about some of the ethnic issues they've had, the Hazars were a minority group that was not thought of as highly inside of Afghanistan by other Afghanistan members of other Afghanistan groups. That may have changed, but at the time of my research, I mean, it is what it is. This was a thriving location in history because of its proximity to the Silk Road. Lots of tourism, lots of travel, lots of commerce as they stopped and traveled from one side of civilizations to the other. The Buddhist culture began as early as the time of the Buddha, of when Buddha was alive. That's when the culture started to take root here in this part of what was to become Afghanistan. There are many, untold many statues of Buddha carved into the cliffs here in Bamyan. The two biggest were the 55 and the 37 meter tall Buddhas, and you can see the niche for the 55-foot one right there. And I've been trying to identify the other niche. You would imagine that they would be super close together, and maybe they are. I just can't see it here on this banknote. But the largest standing Buddha in the world was this one right here. And it may have been erected in the 4th or 5th century AD. However, in March of 2001, they were deemed idolatrous and were ordered to be destroyed by the Taliban, who claimed to be offended that the world was more interested in the Buddhas than they were in feeding and taking care of the poor and hungry of Afghanistan. And the same could be said about the Taliban. They had other priorities than taking care of the poor and the hungry of Afghanistan, but they weren't advocating blowing themselves up. I should not become too political. I need to chill. But I've discovered that this region was also famous for the growing of potatoes. Who'd have thought? The locals had special names for the two Buddhas. They called the big one Sal, and they called the small one Shamama, and those were names from literature and lore prominent in this part of the world. These are considered, or the Buddhas were considered to be classic examples of Gandhara art. The destruction of the Bamyan Buddhas occurred over a several week period. They were shot at by anti-aircraft guns, rockets, anti-tank mines, holes were drilled, and dynamite was inserted, and it was still extremely difficult to obliterate them as they had been carved directly into the face of the cliffs. There is an ongoing effort to restore the Bamyan Buddhas. And you remember when I mentioned earlier about that Chinese tourist and how he was impressed enough to write about the two standing Buddhas? Well, he wrote about that third giant reclining Buddha that they discovered in 2008. And while I have no image or no other link online other than they found the reclining Buddha in 2008, it did happen. It's fascinating to see history revealed in our very eyes, and that literature that's close to 1,500 years old can still help us discover mysteries in the modern age. If you like this video, make sure you subscribe and share and comment to your friends and colleagues about my channel, Numismatic Notes with Benjamin. I am Benjamin. Have a jewel of a day.